What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Brandon Golden Show here with Pirate Radio. Couldn't be more excited to get this show started. What it's going to be is a culmination of having conversations with coaches, players at the highest level. So we're going to be talking to major league players, major league managers, strength and conditioning coaches. We're going to have people from all aspects of baseball, and we're really just going to dive in and talk about their journey, where they're at, how performance played into that journey, just overall life experiences, and just how all that stuff looks and what it really takes to be successful again at the highest level of sport. Today we talked to Clayton McCullough, the manager of the Miami Marlins. We kind of went all over the place. We talked about where he started at Rose at high school, going to Vandy, then to East Carolina, and then getting into his coaching career. He had an awesome stint, 10-year stint with the Dodgers, now in his second year, going into his second year with the Marlins, and just some of the things that they're doing, how the game is changing, and what he sees coming on the forefront. Clayton, welcome, my man.
Brandon, thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to be on Pirate Radio.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for doing this. I know you're super busy, and I really appreciate it. So, again, yeah, we're filming the Brandon Golden Show live here from Pirate Radio in Greenville, North Carolina, a place that you know pretty well. So tell us a little bit about, your journey playing high school baseball here at Rose and what that meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to that time, I loved Greenville. I mean, the passion that the community had for their sports teams, and again, it felt like a real community. Certainly having East Carolina there, at times when school was in, the population would boom a little bit, but you still felt like a small town. And Greenville Rose was, a great place to go to high school. I was fortunate to play for two great men, Ronald Vincent baseball, Lonnie Baker football, and I think back to those times, Brandon, and how there was expectations then. Like we were, had historically been successful athletically at that school, and so you kind of had an obligation as your class continued to, come through to hold up that end, and you didn't want to be the class that had a down year. Or so I think early on, being in an environment like that where you were expected to win, and you had mentors, both teachers, coaches to look up to, as well as players who would come before you and kind of the ones that you were going to take the baton from. Was a great thing as a young 15 to 18-year-old person growing up. And so I think that just helped springboard from there to East Carolina, and a different level of expectations, and what Keith LeClaire was able to do. Now joining a team full, now you have more players from different parts of the country, different parts of the state, but we had a common goal to a little chip on our shoulder to, go out there and win. And we played with an edge, and the camaraderie, I think back to the culture and how strong that was, Brandon, during those days. And I think that played a big part in us being able to have success with maybe not the most talented or most, gifted players.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And to your point, going back about like RV, like when I was a strength coach here, RV would ride up on his bike and he'd watch and talk to a couple guys and observe what's going on, shake his head, and then he'd ride his bike off, and he'd be on about his business, and just was checking in to make sure things were to the level that he knew that they would be at. And he's just he's a staple around here in high school baseball and in a lot of people's lives. And you mentioned coming to East Carolina. What did it look like for you from a recruiting standpoint, and then how did you know East Carolina was the right place for you?
Well, so I won't say that actually East Carolina was at the top of my list. Part of me at that age, I was very interested in going away from home. I just felt I was an only child, and the opportunity to potentially go to a baseball program, mix the academics with the baseball away from Greenville was something that I was very much intrigued by as a high school student. And so I went to Vanderbilt my freshman year, and I felt like that really provided a bit of, best of both worlds. It was SEC baseball. It was, a very solid academic institution. Nashville was close enough, but far enough away. And Brandon, I just didn't I didn't hold up my end of the bargain there at Vandy. The academics, everyone matures at a different rate, right? And so difficulties there, and realized that I needed to, get back home, get grounded a little bit. And so I transferred to East Carolina, and I still look back and think it's probably, and it is the best decision I've made. And to come back home, play again with a lot of some high school teammates, some other players that had competed against in high school, so certainly was familiar with, as well as getting the chance to have teammates from different parts of the country with Keith, building something there at East Carolina at that time, and trying to, get back to what Coach O had done for a lot of years there and put East Carolina, back on the map. And so still very glad how things worked out. And I, took my own path there, and East Carolina provided me with a lot of incredible moments and opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. Same for me. Did not play, but coming to undergrad here and having the chance to come back here and coach in the strength and conditioning department with CG and a lot of other folks is nothing short of, exactly where I needed to be and the growth that I needed to be on at that point in time in my life. And I say all that because when I came here on my interview, I was at Charleston Southern. I think I went to the Dowdy stores to get a T-shirt. My wife and I went to school here, so we were coming up, got a shirt, and then I see coaching third, sitting there, and I'm like, well, I'm going to get this job, so I'm going to go ahead and read this book, and just read about, what Coach LeClair meant and what coaching third actually meant, the title of the book and all of it. And it was very eye-opening to me as just a person that's a fan of East Carolina, somebody that was hoping to be employed here. What was it like living that and playing for Coach LeClair and just the presence that he was as a person?
Yeah, great question. I mean, Coach LeClair was a terrific husband and father, and then the baseball side of things. I don't remember a lot of the X's and O's from Coach LeClair. It wasn't really about that. It was how he treated us, how much he demanded of us. The accountability portion of things, that he set a standard, and he held the coaches and players that were there at that time to that standard. And then in turn, we held ourselves to that standard. And Brandon, I'll never forget, I think a real turning point for me was after my sophomore year, and again, had like pedestrian season. I had broken a bone early in the spring, and, came back slow, and just, I treaded water. And after the season, Coach LeClair called me in, having it's kind of some exit meetings with guys before you go play summer ball or, do summer school. And he told me flat out to my face that I was the most disappointing player he'd ever coached. And I think that was probably the first time I had gotten feedback like that like hits you in the face. And, you either take it one of two ways, right? That, how could he think about saying that? He's full of it, or, it makes you look in the mirror. And it made me reflect a lot on, what the last couple of years have been like and how much I'd invested appropriately. And I committed myself differently that summer going into my junior year than I had. And so it was a very, again, eye-opening moment for me. And it really, I think, helped change kind of the trajectory of where I was going.
Yeah, which rightfully so. I mean, when a man like that you look up to, that you play for, kind of hits you in the face with that, there's nothing else to do but to the person that you are, and I know you pretty well, rise to the occasion and go do what you have to do. How did East Carolina Vanderbilt high school baseball, I mean, you were a very talented player. You had the chance to be drafted out. You were drafted out of high school and then drafted again in college. How did all of those experiences leading up to that junior year prepare you to be a player in professional baseball?
I think I was looking back, drafted out of high school, and I was at least, I was fortunate because my dad had been in the scouting world for a number of years. And I think we were both, my family and I were very, very aware of where I was physically at 18 years old, not only physically, but from a maturation standpoint. And then trying to go out on my own and play professional baseball at 18 wasn't the path. So college was going to be where I needed to go. And look, I needed to get stronger. I just needed to play more, get exposed to some more competition. And so I think that's probably the greatest thing. I did get a chance to play in the SEC as a freshman, and it's a tough assignment every weekend. And then at East Carolina, the level of in-state competition we played. You're playing North Carolina, NC State, the Elons, conference UNC Wilmington, so VCU. So it's such a great area for baseball and the competition within the state and the connecting states. And again, our group was very special. I think at that time we had a strong culture and were able to win a lot of games. I think will ourselves to win. I learned how to work, in the weight room, what that really meant. Coach Kevin McMullen and Tommy Eason were also integral parts for many of our lives at that juncture and still are. So I was around really good people who cared. You had an incredibly supportive fan base there at East Carolina and the community that had your back, and some awesome teammates that were, going to be with you thick or thin.
Yeah. And you talk about Mac and Tommy. I mean, two unbelievable people that I still, I would consider mentors, and I never played for them, but I get to, reach out to them and talk to them, when the time's appropriate. But just two people that for me have never been too busy to talk or to answer my questions or just to be a part of kind of what I'm doing, because I'm a Pirate, and it's pretty cool stuff, man. Playing professional baseball for you, like, what was that like? Was that a childhood dream type thing? The cliche everybody talks about, living out a childhood dream. What was it like being a player in professional baseball for as long as you were?
It was. I mean, I think from a young age, whether it be growing up in Eastern North Carolina, watching TBS and the Braves, on all the time, and, or the Cubs on WGN, you're playing wiffle ball in the backyard, envisioning yourself being at the plate, game 7 of a World Series, with the chance to be the hero. So I definitely had aspired and, was hoping and believed that one day I'd have a chance to play in the major leagues. Like, that was the ultimate goal, kind of along that, little league to middle school, high school, college journey. And then you get into the minor leagues. And it's certainly at that time, you had to do it because you loved it, because the pay was what it was. You're on the bus rides. You're taking a lot of miles. You're finding a way to sleep on the ground, or sleep with your head on a window. You're eating whatever you can afford. But I think it was the lifestyle I really enjoyed, because it's just baseball. I mean, it was you're with a group. You spend so much time with the coaches and your teammates, and you're all in it together. You're going through the difficulties. And so I think it definitely opened my eyes to now, okay, having been through college, having been through, several seasons of minor league baseball, which path I was hoping I'd be able to go beyond playing. And I realized, during the 2005 season with Cleveland, that my dreams of being a major league player were probably done. Now, could I have played and hung around and spent some more time in their organization or somebody else's? Potentially. But I felt like I was at a crossroad, Brandon, and it was time to, shift gears a little bit and think about, the next 30 years. And coaching is what I wanted to do. And I was fortunate enough to be and exposed to some, East Carolina, that program, as well as at that time, Cleveland is and still is a very progressive, forward-thinking organization. They had a lot of coaches and staff members that, if you think now, they're in their GM's places, their major league coaches and managers' places. So I was very lucky to, I think, have spent time in that organization and cultivated some relationships, and been shown, I think, a very professional manner about how to go things. And I just knew my time had come, and it was, on to the next.
Yeah. And coming back to East Carolina to be the volunteer, what was that like, going from playing here to now coaching here, and how did you manage all of that?
Yeah, I loved it. I'm 25 years old at the time. I had some school left, and I'd come back. I'd made my mind up that season of 05 that was going to be it as a player. And I re-enrolled in school, and actually I went out and helped Tommy Eason at Pitt. And Tommy's, at Pitt Community then, and I'm not really sure what I want to do. I got to finish school one, then it's, okay, where's this going to take me? How many opportunities are there going to be? And Coach Billy Godwin called me over that winter, and they'd had some shakeup, and they had a volunteer available. And Tommy was great. Tommy was like, Clayton, go do that. Like, I appreciate the help, but like, I think this is probably, for what you want to go do, this is better, go over there. And so Link Jarrett was on staff then, George Whitfield, who was around a lot when I played, so I appreciate Billy for giving me that opportunity. So I got a chance to finish school, which was much easier at 25 than it was at 19. I enjoyed school. It was kind of funny, the 180 I'd taken, and then to get a chance to coach in college, and that summer to go coach part time with the Blue Jays in the Appalachian League. So now I had a little bit of compare, the minor league coaching side, the collegiate coaching side. And after that summer, I knew I wanted to hopefully stay in the pro ranks. Now, Brandon, it was tough, as you know. I mean, you send out resumes. I got ghosted by so many people. And, I think back now and laughing, like, I kind of lucked into it, but like, it's hard to get, your foot in the door initially. And so I got that opportunity with the Blue Jays and decided that was going to be what I wanted to go, take as my next step.
Yeah, and when you got with the Blue Jays, did you go straight into being a manager?
That first summer, I was a hitting coach, and back then, I mean, it was just a much different landscape in 2006. There wasn't tech, data was not like it is now. You had a manager, a pitching coach, and then you had a positional coach, hitting coach. So You're coaching the hitting, which, I kind of knew what I thought I knew. And all right, now you're coaching the infielders too and the outfielders. So, but I loved it. I'm 26. I'm at the field all day long. The recruiting side of things never really intrigued me. The admin work at that time. So the being on the field all day, kind of in the weeds, felt more my speed. And so I got through that season, and Toronto offered me a full-time position going into 2007 as a manager. We were going to have a Gulf Coast League team for the first time, which was a rookie level at the complex, and I was thrilled to be offered that.
Heck yeah, absolutely. And then managed for the next 7 years in that organization. Like, how did that look? How did you grow from the first full-time job down there at the complex to kind of where you finished up with that organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always one to listen more than to just talk. And so I took in, we had, a number of coaches that had been doing it for a long time. They'd been coaching for a number of years in the minor leagues. So they kind of, took me under their wing, and I just kind of ran around and was like, more, how can I help? If there's nobody on the bucket over here, Brandon, let me run over and get on the bucket. If they need a fungo on this field, I'll do that. And then the summer comes and you have your chance to, lead a team for the first time. And, you got the mix of, we had some high school drafted players. We had, players from our international, Latin American group, and some college players. So you have this real melting pot of personalities and individuals. And that was, really my first time certainly having to navigate through that, learn people, build relationships in a different way. Now, you also have to follow, organizational initiatives, organizational asks, who's going to play, explaining that to them why. So that first year, I'm so glad that I was just kind of somewhat, you're basically just kind of, I was told objectives like, hey, we kind of want this to happen. Now go figure out what's the best way to, get players better and also ensure that the appropriate amount of touches, reps are also happening. So I think it just kind of springboarded into, managing, like you said, in that system for 7 years or so more before getting a chance to be a roving coordinator.
Yeah, which is remarkable to think about, Clayton, because you obviously there's a skill set in understanding the game and being able to manage and have the relationships to be able to have those conversations with players. But to me, like, understanding the art of coaching is that's exactly what you just mentioned. Like, that's the art of coaching. That's how you get the most out of your players. You're able to take all of these different things that you're responsible for as a manager in the minor leagues, and like, you're the guy to make it come to fruition. Like, how did you grow in that sense in understanding the art of coaching and just like who you are as a person?
Yeah, great question. I think back now, I think a lot of it actually started with my mom. And Brandon, she was a school teacher, and my mom was always there she doesn't have a selfish bone in her body. And she was, she was the one that, was going to go look out for students that maybe needed a little bit more support and, needed a ride home or needed some different type of attention. And I remember, I had friends from all walks growing up, and I enjoyed people, I think, a lot, just being around people and like drawing a certain energy from being with people and being able to, fit yourself into different dynamics and different groups. And I think so managing and leading people is very much about that. And it's having some empathy for where someone comes from and what their situation is, understanding that, as much as we would love to make this, game about only numbers, that there is a person and there's a human behind all of it. And, there's things away from the field that are probably having some type of an impact, on their ability to perform. So I think just drawing on a lot of those experiences growing up, and then, in turn, trying to be a good servant leader. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant, Brandon. And I think that's something, I think as I've gone, it's become more trendy or more in vogue. And but I think that's what I, had tried to do when I started out, and just felt like that was the right thing to do, treat people the right way. And that's not just the players, but that's, anyone you come across, that everyone deserves a level of respect and, kind of leave things better than the way you found them. So I wanted to, our teams, and like if you're going to try to build out a culture, year after year somewhere, it'd be rooted in, respect for each other and, just doing the best that you can.
Yeah. And that's what life's all about. And to your point, like, yes, there's certain things that people are going to be held to a standard from a baseball side of things, but when you can make that relationship with them and they know that you have their back as a human being, and you'll give them the opportunities to go show you what they're capable of doing as a baseball player, like what more could they want? Like it's every player's dream. That's outstanding. Thanks for tuning into the Brandon Golden Show. Just wanted to talk briefly about Clean Fuego and our sponsor. So if you're looking for better spin efficiency and really to be able to throw the ball without cutting it and have true spin, check out Clean Fuego at cleanfuego.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Brandon Golden Show. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit, going from the manager to being the field coordinator with the Dodgers. When did you know that was going to happen, and what was that like?
Oh, wow. That was – so this was after the 2014 season. I remember getting some calls from our farm director, and he had, team had reached out, would like to interview you for the field coordinator position. And it was a job at that point that I was very intrigued by. I think, I liked I loved the game, and also enjoyed, the fundamental side of things and the teaching aspect, and felt like, well, the field coordinator kind of gives you the chance to, have a different level of oversight of an operation, and as well as, but you're still putting a uniform on. You're still able to kind of get down and get dirty with players and coaches, and thought that would be a really, cool job. And maybe if I was able to get a job like this, it might be what I want to do forever. And so actually I interviewed with the Padres and didn't get theirs. And I'm home. I'm home talking to my wife, and we're like, okay, fine. We love the Blue Jays. They were great to us. And like a week later, the Dodgers called and wanted to, same thing. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll interview for this one too. And Gabe Kapler had just been hired as the farm director in LA. Andrew Friedman, Farhan Zaidi, who had, started that fall. So it was going to be a new front office, and went through it with Gabe, and, offered me the job. And Brandon, it was a one year deal. And I'm not going to lie. Part of me was like, wow, do I want to really give up the comfort of where I've been, people I know that have been good to me, to go jump. I didn't know anyone with the Dodgers. I was unfamiliar with their farm system. I mean, West Coast team, you just don't interact a whole lot. The coaches, I didn't know anyone. So it was a little scary at that time. My wife and I think I'm like 33 or 34 maybe. And, 1 year deal, and thought, I had a good colleague of mine, a friend, said, look, you can't say no if they offer it. Like, it's a great job. It's, it's the Dodgers. It's, so I took it, and I will say professionally, it was the best decision I ever made. I mean, I get into that organization, and some really terrific people, Andrew Friedman, Josh Burns, and it's with Brandon Gomes, who's now the GM. And I think I was just exposed to a different viewpoint on how to look at development. And, LA was going to make some changes there and became more holistic, became very into the nutrition side of things, the weightlifting, not siloing departments, and incorporating our scouting and player development really need to be in sync. And how we were going to use data to evaluate players, and also use it as an evaluation and a teaching tool. So I wasn't very versed in a lot of what now are common things that were being modernized some in baseball, and LA was at the forefront of a lot of that. So to be around some very special individuals, certainly an organization that had a lot of pedigree, and it was new. And stepping out of your comfort zone, as you know, Brandon, is a really important thing as far as growth goes. So, and I'll tell you a quick story. That first spring training, Brandon, man, I got hired like December 7th. Spring training is 2 months away, and now, hey, you got to, put together a spring training and connect with the major league group. What are they going to need? And I don't even know what the complex looks like. I don't know any players. So, we get there, and Gabe Kapler and I are walking around one of the early days of spring training, and none of our players had names on their jerseys, right? So we don't know any of them, right? Like I hadn't met most of them, and have a roster in my back pocket, and we're like, okay, like try not to let them see, like, hey, who's 88? And it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's so and so. Well, there's multiple 88s. Well, right. Which one do you think that is? Well, he's heading to the bullpen. It's got to be this guy, So we were right there walking, going, all right, next year everyone's going to have a name on their jersey. But it was jump in the deep end, and sink or swim. But I wasn't solo. I had a lot of people there that were setting a course for that organization in a different way, and kind of wanted to blaze a different trail. And so I still to this day feel that those 10 years there were, I think, shaped me more than anything.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, man. Like talking about jumping outside my comfort zone. Strength and conditioning coach here at East Carolina. My wife and I met here. We're from 2.5 hours away, and talked with the Dodgers, talked with Eric Yavarone, and next thing I know, I'm talking to BMAC and Stoney, and it's like, hey, this thing's real. And it was during COVID. It's during a pandemic, and it's like I'm gonna go take this job. And I had multiple opportunities to go to professional baseball before. It just wasn't the right opportunity in the right time, and leaving here was the hardest thing I've ever done professionally. But being in that position, like you said, with those people in the system that you helped create, like I was put in a position by BMAC and Stoney and Yav and Travis, like to be able to flourish. And it's like, okay, big dog, like you want to be, in your mind, one of the best performance coaches in the game. Well, here's what it takes. Here's the blueprint. Here's how you can learn, and let's go do it. So it's I couldn't agree more. Being a part of that organization, it really shaped me, and it's allowing me to do things that I'm doing today. And it's a pretty special place with pretty special people. What was it like for you when you went from being the field coordinator to being in the big leagues and coaching first base? And what was it like? And then what are the differences?
Oh gosh, I remember that George Lombard, who had been the first base coach, got hired by the Tigers to be their bench coach. So Dave Roberts calls me, and he's, Clayton, love for you to come be on my staff and be the first base coach. So for one, I'm honored, for that opportunity. And I'd been the field coordinator for 6 years, and it wasn't that it was stale or old, but it was also, okay, this was going to be certainly, again, another challenge and something vastly different than what I've been doing. And it felt like, again, it was the right time to, take on something new. And so, I say yes. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I'm going to be coaching outfielders and base running. And I'm like, well, gosh, I haven't really put a whole lot of time thinking about outfielder and outfield play other than can they hit or not. Mm-hmm. It's like, so I'm going to try to learn as much as I can about teaching outfield, what some of these metrics mean. Why are some of the best? Do they do certain things the same way? BMAC was a great resource for me. Like, okay, how are we going to incorporate some, strength and conditioning, explosive, athletic, things into outfield play. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get to coach Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, AJ Pollock at the time were, the three outfielders we were going into the season with. And I'm thinking, okay, well, Mookie's won a bunch of Gold Gloves. He's pretty good. I knew Belly from the minor leagues, and Bopper's special, and then AJ, who had been with Arizona and been a really good player. So now you have these, it's gonna be different. This is, these veteran players that have had a lot of major league success, and here I'm coming in. I never played in the big leagues. I've never played their position. Never coached it. And what is this going to look like? And Brandon, I can remember that. I go through the off season preparing as best I can, getting ready for it, and we go out there. The first day of our full squad practice, and now it's like, okay, the drills and what you're going to do in your 15, 20 minutes are, they're expecting you to come out there with something. And I remember I'm like, all right, okay, guys, we're going to try some things. I have there's some reasoning behind why I think we're going to approach our defense in this manner and try to make some things important, but also I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. And, but I'm okay. I'm going to need you guys to, help me out along this. I'm not pretending to be an expert. And so I'm lucky that Mookie is just a first-class individual. He was, he'd give me a hard time, but he was also, he was there to help and also push me to become a better coach. And, Belly was just, so much fun to be around. AJ had a lot of his own thoughts and things that he brought from Arizona. So it was trying to outsource with different people, some ways to make it creative, to, make it a little bit less mundane potentially, but also hit on the mark of ultimately getting them better and, getting us ready for a season. So it was that first, week or 10 days was a bit nerve-wracking because it was, you had to be buttoned up. You had to go out there prepared, have it set up, have it ready to go. You can't fake those guys. You just I think they were after a while, you learn that major league players, what they really care about are, are you going to be in the foxhole with them? Is it about you or is it about them?
Mm-hmm.
What type of worker you are. And I was like, at least I can be true to those things. And I'm not here for myself. And I feel like I'm not that smart, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't have all the answers. And we'll just work through this together. So again, year 2 was much different than year 1, but it was again, and Dave Roberts is the best. And I'll say this, I'm so happy for him, win another World Series, cement his legacy, because the way he treats people, the autonomy he gives you to go do your job, and you never wanted to let him down. And so I think we had, and they still do have a lot of great people over there that you could lean on, and everyone was pulling from the same end. Ultimately, you knew what the end goal, what it was, this World Series or bust. And so you had players that were very driven to try to make that a reality, and then just expected us as coaches to hold them accountable and hold up our end to challenge them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like anybody else, we want to know that people aren't going to feed us nonsense, and that they're going to have our back, and they're going to tell us the truth. And you as a person, again, talking about the art of it all, that's who you are. And you're like, hey, look, Mookie, you know how to go catch the baseball. Belly, you know how to go catch the baseball. AJ, you know what we're doing. Hey, guys, let's get this thing rolling, and let's do this together. That statement probably set you up for okay, we can get behind this. And it was that's pretty awesome for you to have the humility to be able to do that, especially in that position where some people could have said, you know what, I'm in the big leagues, I'm a major league coach, you guys are going to do what I say. So kudos to you for having the ability to say that and really get their buy-in probably day 1, day 2, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I'll think back of the most embarrassing moment, Brandon. So this was, you go through spring training, and the games they're what they are, right? It's mostly, an established group, especially, they're getting themselves ready. They're playing a certain number of innings at bats. You're doing a lot of the practice drill work to, there's a getting in shape part of things to get ready for the long season, as well as trying to address maybe some deficiencies. In coaching first base, I'm trying to, okay, where do I stand? What do I say to guys over here? And the first game of the season, opening day 21, Brandon, we're in Colorado. Of Coors Field, and this is the second inning. Justin Turner's on first. Bellinger hits a ball deep to left center. All right, and I can still remember Raimel Tapia running after it, and JT does right. He runs like around second base. Okay, so there's no way, even if he catches it, he's getting doubled off, right? So Tapia jumps up, looks like he goes over the fence, catches it, right? Comes down. Now JT is flying back to first base. I'm watching JT, like, make sure he touches second. He's running back. Well, next thing you know, everyone on the field for the Rockies just stops, right? The third base umpire, he signals home run. Well, at this point now, Bellinger has run past Justin Turner.
Oh, boy.
So I'm standing there, a little, and now, okay, time. All right, well, this is not good. Bellinger, you're out. You pass the base runner. That's the second out. Well, now, JT, you get to score from first, and Bellinger gets an RBI single. So I'm like, I wanted to dig a hole right there at first base. I mean, I didn't want to look over at the dugout on the third base side, and like, I can only guess Doc's reaction, probably going, "Oh my gosh, like what do we have here?"
Right.
And so it was a good lesson that, my responsibility is the hitter there, and if I wanted to be a fan and watch the play, I could buy a ticket, and that there's nothing I could do for Justin Turner really at the time. He can't hear me. He's scrambling. So, embarrassing, and at the same time, glad it happened.
Yeah, no doubt, because it would never happen again. And you'll teach somebody that's on your staff now, like, hey, let's make sure the hitter stays behind the runner on this one, please.
Exactly right.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What a cool story. What was it like moving? So, obviously, you're there in 21, 22, 23, building up to the World Series, not this season, but the season before. What was that like for you, being on the Major League staff, winning the World Series, and just seeing all the work and all the fruits of y'all's labor come to fruition there?
Yeah, I think it tracks back a few years. That felt like in 2022 we had, it was as good a collection, as good a team as I'd ever been a part of. We won 111 games, and we go in, and San Diego beats us in the division series, a team that we had handled in the regular season. We really thought we were going to make history, 111 games, win the World Series, and they knocked us out. And then we go to 23 with, again, a different makeup of a team, and we won 100 games again. And it felt like there was more adversity. Like, okay, we're battle tested now to go into the postseason, and Arizona swept us. And they humiliated us. So that was, I think, for all of us, a very humbling, embarrassing, final act of a season. So not that there was extra motivation going into 24, but there was definitely a sting of some real disappointment when it mattered most. And, certainly signing Shohei, in the offseason, was a game changer. Yamamoto, I think the group as a whole just recognized that, we have a lot of unfinished business, and that when we get ourselves into the postseason in 24, we need to approach it maybe differently than we had. I think one of their superpowers in LA, Brandon, is that the regular season is this methodical march, and you're never really too high for a series. Lulls and ups and downs in the season, they're very good, and Dave's great at, like, you don't ride the wave. You're always trying to be very process driven and understand that you want to be playing at your best at the end of the year when it counts the most. So, it works very well in the regular season. And now in the postseason, it's a different animal. There's a whole lot more emotion. There's more swings and momentum. And, an 0-1 count feels different in the regular season than it does the postseason. A runner on base feels different, like it's a rally. So and a lot of it was, I give the players, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, guys in that clubhouse, as we prepared for the start of the playoffs in 24, that, hey, we were playing San Diego again. So here we go again, San Diego. And at this point, I think most people would say they probably had a better team than we did in 24. They had elite pitching. They had star power. It's a really tough environment to play in. And they had kind of overcome a little bit of the big brother feeling. Because they knocked us off. And we felt like that was going to be a series we were going to get punched. They were going to throw haymakers, and we needed to be able to punch back. and play with maybe a little bit more edge and have a little bit of more of emotion than what we typically, had done. So I think it was as much just a mindset shift with a lot of that group. The preparation was the same, Brandon. It wasn't that we, were changing a lot of what we had done, but I think there was a little bit more of an edge and intensity to, every inning of those games, and to come back and be down in that series, to come back and, win the last couple. I think once we got past San Diego, everyone felt like, okay, there's some wind at our sails, and we overcame some disappointment from the previous few seasons and really didn't feel like the Mets had any chance. And they were having a very magical season. I mean, they were, on a run, but we thought there's no way. We just have to go out there, same intensity, and we did. And then, the Yankees series, now you're trying not to think about it, right? You got Yankees, Dodgers, the media is making it to be this, which it was cool to be a part of a Yankees-Dodgers World Series, kind of what that meant historically and what that was going to mean 20 years from now. So the Freeman home run in game one, Brandon, I think that game could have gone either way, right? And then, you win the first two at home, go to New York. It felt like it was going to happen, but you never, until that last out was made, you knew it wasn't over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was an unbelievable series, and obviously it worked out in the boys' favor there. Let's go more towards Miami now. Winning the World Series, then you're in the offseason. When did you know that somebody would be reaching out to you from a managerial standpoint in the big leagues, and how did that whole, hiring process go for you?
Yeah, I'd interviewed, I think back now, like 5 or 6 times over the previous 5 years, and they were great experiences. I can honestly say, going through it the first couple of times, people always ask, are you ready? And it's, I don't know, probably not. I think you just sit in there and you're getting asked questions about your personal beliefs and what you feel on culture and what's important to you. How are you going to integrate, front office? And, I never was, the job I currently had, I wasn't thinking much about what was next. It was like, I just need to go be really good at being a first base coach for the Dodgers, because, that's what the players need. That's what, Doc expects. And so you go through some of these, interviews, and you realize that, okay, if this is something that ultimately, you want to do and maybe have a chance to do, I think some of the sting of not getting asked to the prom were an important thing of, okay, when Miami came and we started talking some towards, in the postseason and after the season, felt like, okay, we just finished off what was a remarkable way to end a season, World Series champs. I'd been with the organization 10 years, and Andrew Friedman, who, has been running LA, knew Peter Bendex, who is our president here in Miami from their time in Tampa, and he spoke very highly of Peter and believed that, Peter and I could be good partners, and this is one with where they're at and kind of what they're looking for could be a good fit for you. So I was definitely very intrigued with that possibility. And as I met Peter and his group, and, we had conversations, and through the interview process, I felt, that, okay, this is, could be a really great spot, for me to be. And, I think it was just more, lucky that they were the ones to, again, ask me to go to the prom.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And you kind of mentioned a little bit ago, talking about how player development in the major league, the staff and the scouting departments are together in LA. How are you building some things there in Miami that may be similar or maybe something different that you haven't seen in professional baseball yet to get your guys in the organization of Miami where you think they can go?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of the core things that was a part of in LA and saw that worked, that you can't try to just mimic and copy someone else. But there are some core things, again, like the type of people that you're working with, having some having people around you that are curious and that will challenge you and that will give you feedback. Were things here that we are very much emphasizing. Being a great teammate. And we're also very aware of the landscape of things. We're not the Dodgers. We're not, the Mets, but we're in a very competitive division. And so we're taking our pillars here are trying to be, innovation, thinking 3 to 5 years ahead and being a great teammate. And that there's part of our organization, Brandon, that we're playing a little catch up to the industry. But if we're only always playing catch up, then we're probably going to end up in a very similar situation year after year. And so we got to find a way to do some things differently. We have to find some ways to, win some stuff at the margins for us to feel like we can be a team that is competing to win 90 games every year and get into the postseason. So, we felt like this year, organizationally, some of this stuff started the year before in the minor leagues with, our training environments, and again, like the emphasis on strength and conditioning and how important that is, the nutritional aspects. We called pitchers from the dugout at the end of the season, which, in Major League Baseball has not been something that has, I think ever happened on a every pitch, basis. So I think we're looking at player development as it's not stopping at the Major League level, and that, it is something that I definitely take from LA and being around the Freddie Freemans, the Mookie Betts, watching Shohei, Will Smith, Clayton Kershaw. These guys every year they came in and were looking to be better than they were the year before. And they were always looking to get better. And so you think if you got these guys who are going to go to the Hall of Fame, they've had careers that are littered with hardware, that if that's how their mentality to approaching things, that's you can, how could you not do that if you're a player that has, that's more young, trying to establish yourself? So development at the Major League level is a big emphasis we put on this year. And it was a heck of a lot of fun, Brandon, to try to, start a lot of these things from square one.
Yeah. Which is really cool. I've, since getting out of professional baseball and consulting and kind of running my own business, having the chance to train Major League guys that are knocking on the door, college guys that are trying to get drafted. Clayton, like you're 100% right. Like there's so often times in the industry where guys get to the big leagues and they get a little pat on the butt and it's like, all right, go get them. That did not happen in LA. That's not happening with you guys. It's happening some places across Major League Baseball, but the guys that want to be elite and have the opportunity to be elite, they want to be coached. They want more information. They want that relationship. So kudos to you guys for fostering that, because that's what it takes.
Yeah, that's it. We're hoping that's the culture, is that you're going to get coached, and you're going to we'll be very transparent with where you're at. Yes, we are going to approach how we go about things maybe differently, but we're trying to do what we believe is best for the Miami Marlins, and a player improving, a player becoming better, improving their earning power. It's not mutually exclusive with them getting what they want, and in turn us as an organization becoming stronger, healthier, and winning games. So right. It's how do you marry those two? And a lot of it is, I've tried in our staff to be incredibly consistent every day, that at least the guys, when they walk through there, they know we're going to show up with their best interest in mind. But also at times, we're going to need to ask a lot of them for the betterment of our team.
100%, because it's necessary. Clayton, I got maybe one or two quick little questions for you. I really appreciate your time, and then we'll let you get back to your day. This is going to be a tough one. What is your favorite or most holy crap wow moment that you've ever had in the big leagues?
Oh, Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam, game one of the World Series. It was, you're trying not to, you're down, and like we're down to our last out, we're losing. You're trying not to think about all the negative, but that's the reality of the situation at hand. So it's like trying to stay locked in on your job in the moment with, the base runners over there. And then when he hit the ball, right off the bat, you just know that's gone. Like he did it. And then it was more, there was shock, disbelief. Guys, everybody just hung in the dugout, Brandon, for I don't know how long after, like, did that just happen?
That's
In a
awesome.
World Series game. So that for sure was the greatest like individual thing I've seen.
Yeah. How could it not? I mean, how cool was that? What are you most excited about, or what's maybe one or two things that you're like, hey, 3 to 5 years from now, people are going to be talking about X that me and my staff are doing in Miami?
Great question. Brandon, I do think that there's a real chance that the pitch calling from the dugout picks up some speed in the industry in the next few seasons. I think there's enough. I would imagine a lot of organizations are very intrigued by it and would potentially like to implement it. And for whatever reason, there's definitely some barriers and some hurdles you have to jump for something that's a bit non-traditional, that is controversial. I believe that there's a chance that some other teams follow suit.
For sure. Yeah, it makes sense. You guys have the information. You've done the scouting reports. They're super talented. Let them go out there and execute. Clayton, this has been unbelievable, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you and look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, it was my pleasure, Brandon. Great to catch up with you again, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Talk soon. See you, Clayton.
See ya.